The night she knocked on my door, the rain wasn't loud, but the silence behind it was deafening, the kind that presses against your chest and makes it hard to breathe. Grief has a soundless weight, and when I opened the door and saw it sitting in her eyes, I knew this wasn't just another neighborly moment. It was the beginning of something that would change both of our lives. She had lost her husband that morning, and the world she stood in no longer made sense. Her porch light flickered behind her like a failing heartbeat, and the darkness around her felt too large for one person to stand in alone. Before the story pulls you deeper, take a moment. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, in small human moments that can save a life, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Your support keeps stories like this alive. Her name was Rebecca Collins, and she lived in the small blue house next to mine in a quiet neighborhood outside Des Moines, Iowa. We had exchanged polite waves over the fence, occasional smiles while collecting mail, nothing more. She was always warm, always composed, the kind of woman who baked cookies during holidays and planted flowers every spring. Her husband, Matthew, had been a gentle presence, soft-spoken, hard-working, the kind of man who fixed everyone's fences without being asked. That morning an ambulance came, lights off, no sirens, and by noon the house felt hollow, like a body without a soul. I watched from my window as relatives arrived and left, their faces strained, their embraces brief, until evening came and everyone went home, leaving Rebecca alone with a silence that screamed. I was a man who thought he understood loneliness. My name is Andrew Miller, 34, divorced, working nights at a logistics warehouse, living a life that felt paused rather than broken. I had moved to that neighborhood trying to start over, telling myself I needed peace more than people. But peace can turn into isolation when you're not careful. And as I stood there that night, watching Rebecca stand in the rain, I realized how fragile that line really is. She didn't need solutions. She didn't need wise words. She needed presence. She needed another human being to share the unbearable quiet. She stepped inside, trembling not from the cold but from the shock that hadn't worn off yet. The house smelled of wet earth and old coffee. I made tea with shaking hands, feeling awkward, unsure how to exist in the space of someone else's grief. The hours that followed moved strangely, as if time itself had slowed out of respect. We sat in the living room, the television off, the clock too loud. I could feel her pain without her saying a word. It sat between us like a third presence, heavy and sacred. That night, I slept on the couch in my clothes, barely resting, listening for any sign that she might need something, anything. The days after were harder. Grief does not fade quickly, it transforms, shifting shapes, finding new ways to hurt. Rebecca struggled with mornings the most. She would stand on her porch staring at the driveway, as if expecting Matthew's truck to pull in late, as if denial could keep him alive. I began checking on her daily, sometimes bringing groceries, sometimes just sitting quietly while she sorted through paperwork and photographs. I saw her strength crack and reform over and over again. There were moments she seemed almost normal, followed by sudden collapses into tears that felt endless. I didn't try to fix it. I learned that grief isn't something you cure, it's something you walk beside. My own life began to change in ways I didn't expect. I found myself looking forward to mornings again, to being needed in a way that wasn't transactional or forced. At work, my coworkers noticed I smiled more, even though I slept less. Helping Rebecca helped me too, forcing me out of the emotional numbness I had lived in since my divorce from Hannah years earlier. I had blamed myself for that failure, convinced I was incapable of being enough for anyone. Sitting across from Rebecca, watching her survive something far worse, taught me that love isn't about perfection. It's about staying when it would be easier to disappear. Weeks passed, and the neighborhood returned to its routine, but Rebecca's house remained different. The flowers wilted, the lights stayed off longer, and the laughter that once drifted through open windows was gone. One evening, during a thunderstorm, the power went out, plunging both houses into darkness. Without thinking, I walked over with candles and a flashlight. We sat together again, listening to the storm, and something shifted. The pain was still there, but it wasn't alone anymore. In that dim light, surrounded by flickering shadows, I realized how deeply I cared. Not out of obligation, not out of pity, but out of a genuine connection forged in vulnerability. Grief tests boundaries. There were moments when I worried about what people might think, about crossing invisible lines. But compassion does not follow neat rules. Rebecca never asked for more than presence, and I never offered more than honesty. Slowly, she began to laugh again, quietly at first, almost apologetically. She started cooking meals instead of surviving on cereal. She talked about Matthew with less pain and more gratitude, remembering him as he lived rather than how he died. Watching her heal didn't erase her loss, but it allowed something new to grow around it. One afternoon, months later, we walked through a local park near the river, the trees shedding leaves in soft reds and golds. Rebecca spoke about fear, not of being alone, but of forgetting who she was before grief reshaped her. I shared my own fears, admitting how much I had hidden from life after my divorce. In that moment, there was no widow, no failed husband, just two broken people learning how to stand again. Healing didn't arrive like a miracle. It came like a sunrise. Slow, uncertain, but inevitable. As winter approached, Rebecca started volunteering at a community center, helping other families who had lost loved ones. I watched her transform pain into purpose, and it humbled me. She didn't erase her scars, she used them as bridges. I realized that staying that first night hadn't just saved her from loneliness, it had saved me from myself. Sometimes the smallest acts of kindness become the turning points of entire lives. If this story has touched you even a little, if it reminded you of someone you've lost or someone you wish you had stayed for, please take a moment to engage with this video. Your likes, shares, and comments help spread messages of hope to people who may be sitting alone in their own silent rooms right now. Before the ending, I have a special request. Please comment the word stay if you believe that simply being there can change a life. Today, Rebecca's porch light shines again, steady and warm. We still live next door, still share quiet evenings and long conversations, still respect the past while walking towards something new. Love didn't arrive loudly or dramatically, it arrived gently, through grief, patience, and presence. And every time I look at that light, I remember the night she knocked on my door, asking for nothing more than company, and how saying yes became the most important decision of my life.